All right, we're about to dive into one of the most, severe and challenging passages you'll find in ancient law, Deuteronomy chapter 13. This text lays out a really strict and, frankly, pretty brutal code for how to deal with anyone who tries to get people to worship other gods. So, let's break down how this whole thing is structured.
So here's how we're going to tackle this, and it actually follows the structure of the text itself. First, we'll look at the core idea behind it all, which is framed as a test of loyalty. Then, we'll get into 3 specific case studies, and you'll see how they escalate. First, a deceiving prophet, then a betrayal from someone inside your own family, and finally, what to do with an entire town that's gone astray. We'll wrap it all up by looking at the why behind it all, what the text calls purging the evil.
Okay, so first things first, before we even get to the punishments, and trust me, they are intense, the text sets up a core principle. This isn't just a random list of do this, don't do that. It's really all about the why, the reason these laws were considered absolutely vital for the community's survival and its whole identity.
So it's super important to understand what the actual crime is here. We need to be clear. This law isn't really about what you might believe in private in your own head. No, it's aimed squarely at a very public act, apostasy. And what that means in this context is actively trying to get other people to rebel against God by worshiping other gods.
And this is where the framing gets really interesting. According to the text, when someone shows up trying to lead people astray, it's not just some random act of evil. It's actually presented as a direct test from God. It's like a pop quiz on faithfulness, to find out if the people really love Him with everything they've got.
So let's look at the first case study to see how this all plays out in practice. The threat here comes from someone you'd normally trust, someone with public and spiritual authority, a prophet, or as the text says, a dreamer of dreams. And the scenario they lay out is so specific. Imagine this. A prophet comes along and performs a genuine sign or wonder. It works. It looks totally legit, right? But then they use that newfound credibility to say, hey, let's go follow these other gods. And boom, there's the test. What do? Do you follow the amazing thing you just saw, or do you stick to the law you already know?
Well, the text response is, let's just say absolute. There's no gray area. Step 1, you must not listen to them. Period. Step 2, that prophet or dreamer has to be put to death. Why? Because they try to incite a rebellion. And third, this whole act is described as a kind of communal cleansing, literally purging the evil from among you.
Okay, so if you thought that was intense, the next case takes it to a whole other level. It raises the personal stakes dramatically. We're moving away from a public figure now and into your most intimate, trusted circle, your family and your closest friends. And this is where the command becomes almost unimaginably difficult to even think about.
And the text leaves absolutely no room for wiggling out of this. It gets painfully specific, listing the people it could be: your very own brother, your son or your daughter, the wife you love, or your closest friend. It's targeting the people you are most emotionally connected to, and it just confronts that bond head on. And you can just feel the incredible tension here, can't you? The command is basically telling you to override every single natural instinct you have for love and protection. Show them no pity, do not spare them or shield them. The law is demanding that your loyalty to God has to come before even the deepest, most profound human relationships you have. The punishment itself is not only severe, it's designed to be deeply, deeply personal. The person who is tempted, the one who heard that secret whisper to go worship other gods, they are commanded to cast the very first stone. You heard that right. The accuser becomes the main executioner, and only then does the rest of the community join in. It's this ultimate public act of choosing sides.
Okay, so we've gone from the individual prophet to the immediate family. Now the law zooms out to the largest possible scale. What happens when an entire town is led astray? This is the final, and I'd say most devastating case study in the whole chapter.
So, the way this plays out is a report comes in that troublemakers have shown up in a town and have actually succeeded in convincing everyone there to worship other gods. In the eyes of this law, this isn't just a small problem. The entire social and religious fabric of that town has been completely destroyed.
But what's really important is to notice the process here. The very first step isn't just to rush in and destroy everything, it's investigation. The text is clear. You have to inquire, probe, and investigate it thoroughly. But if the charge turns out to be true, then the judgment is total. I mean, every single inhabitant, and even their livestock, must be put to the sword. All their possessions are gathered up and burned along with the town. And then it's to remain a ruin forever. never to be rebuilt.
So, after laying out these three incredibly severe cases, the text finally gives its justification. You have to be asking, why? Why such extreme measures? Well, this final section explains the reasoning given in the text for why this law exists.
And the goals here are actually pretty layered. On one level, it's about purging what's seen as a spiritual cancer from the community. It's about punishing those who try to turn you away from God. But it's also about managing the relationship with God himself. The idea is that this action will turn away his fierce anger, and in its place secure his mercy and blessing. And at the end of the day, it's all framed as the ultimate act of obedience.
And this really gets to the most explicit social function of the law. The punishments are absolutely designed to be public and terrifying. The thinking is that when all of Israel hears about this, about a family member being executed or an entire town being wiped off the map, they'll be afraid. And that fear is meant to be the ultimate deterrent, making sure no one else ever tries to do such a thing again.
So we're left with a really big question that gets right to the heart of a text like this. When a society creates a law of absolute religious purity with such finality, what does that tell us about that community's core values? And maybe even more telling, what does it reveal about its deepest fears? That's definitely something to think about.